Okay, I'm going to make a quick video here just showing you how to make record bases. This could be used for making record bases, for custom trays, for any number of techniques. In this case, someone asked me, if I do primary impressions, how can I make the custom impression tray? So I'll go ahead and show you that. And again, you can extend this to make it for any type custom tray or record base or whatever. So the first thing I'm going to do is you've got your digital model. This could be from a primary impression that you scanned. Use the select tool and just color in where you want the outlines of this tray to be. And so, if this is a primary impression, you can imagine it's probably overextended. So I don't want to go all the way out to the vestibule. I'm going to leave it a little short so that you can actually have some room for border molding material. But I'm just coloring that in. That looks pretty good. Let's add a little bit down through here. There we go. And now with that done, I'm going to smooth the boundary. So go to Modify, Smooth Boundary. That's just going to make it a little smoother all over. And with that done, now you can offset this. Now the question you need to ask in your mind is, how far off do I want this tray to be? So you got to have some space for your impression material. And so you can make that be whatever you want. Go to Edit and Offset. And I think in this case, I want to try to make that offset be 1 millimeter high. That will give me the spacer for my impression material for 1 millimeter without the tray being over bulky. And as you see here, it's defaulted. If it wasn't, you can just change this number to 1, click over in the screen, and it will update that. But since that's 1, you can see what it's done here is it has offset the entire colored surface by 1 millimeter. So I'll accept that. And with that done, this is still all the same STL, right? Even though it's offset a surface, it's still considered part of this STL. So while this is still selected orange, I'm going to go up to Edit and Separate. And that's going to turn this into its own STL, as you see here now. Now, if you look at this, you're going to see that this is right now just a one-sided skin, that you couldn't print this, okay? This is just going to, be one-sided. So what I've in fact got to do is now go in and double-click all of this. So select all of that color, and let's go to Extrude. All right, so how thick do you want your tray to be? I'm going to say let's make this tray be 2 millimeters thick. That should be rigid enough. And you can see it only extrudes it upward, which causes some areas to pass through itself and get defects that you wouldn't be able to print. The reason is the direction here is set at constant. We want to change that to normal, which means don't just go up in one direction, go outward in every direction from that. And now you see that we've got a custom tray that is thickened up to 2 millimeters. I'll accept that. And in doing so, every time there's a little bump or something, it's going to make the mesh cross over itself. And so you could go in here with sculpting tools like the brush, and you could start trying to smooth out that stuff. But in my opinion, the easiest way to do this is just to go up to Edit and hit Make Solid. And as you can see, what that does, it just turns this into one uniform solid. That doesn't have all those areas of mesh crossing over it. You're still going to have a little roughness on the boundaries. That's not a big deal. Just, if you want to smooth it now, or just whenever you print that, you can get rid of those. So I'll just, since I'm doing it digital, I'll just go ahead and hit this very briefly with the Robust Smooth tool. Get rid of all those little spikes that may have occurred at the boundary. All right. So there is the base of our tray. Turn the model back on where you can see this. And once again, it's sitting up off the model. Now, this is an additional step. If you want to do it, you can add some tissue stops. Now, the best way I think to add tissue stops is what we can do is now, let's select this model. So you can see that this is the original model. And you see there's a magnet right here beside it in the objects browser. Click on that magnet, which means you just magnetize the model. So now what I can do is I can come up here with the tray selected and go to brushes, and we want to use the attract brush. Okay, now you don't want to use a too big of a spot size on this. I'm going to bump that down to, that looks about right. And so it's made the model transparent so that you can see through it, so that you can pull off and attract a piece of this model over to your tray. And so let's just find where we want to make our stops. I'm going to turn the strength down a little bit so I don't overdo it. And you can see this tool works fast. And so as I'm attracting, it is pulling that mesh up until you get that little mottled appearance, like right here. That's just telling you that now those are in contact. All right. And if you sit and hover too long, well, it's not even going to do it now that I've mentioned it, but sometimes if you sit and hover too long, it'll kind of start pulling it in crazy directions. You just want to hit this, kind of go around and around in a circle until you've created that and you don't create any, the mesh crossing over itself. So now I'll go over to this side. I'm pulling this up. So now we have another tissue stop, and let's get a tripod of stops. So I'm going to just do the center of the ridge here. So make it whatever you want. If you like different spots for your tissue stops, that's the beauty of digital, is you can just do whatever the heck you want. You're not beholden to anybody else. So now I can turn off the magnet. This is my final custom tray. You can see it right here with the tissue stops internally. So that's going to mean that these go right down to the tissue, but everywhere else has that uniform 1 millimeter of space for your PVS or impression material of your choice. And now you could just print this as is. If you wanted to make a handle on it, the easiest way to make a handle, there's actually a few ways that you can make a handle. One is you could just use your select tool like this, push T for transform, and then pull that up. Except if you wanted to now change directions with it, you could select another piece, T for transform, pull it laterally. All right, so that's one option. I'm going to Control Z back with that. If you've done the trouble of making a custom tray, though, in my mind, the better use of your time is to actually use that master impression appointment to also get your records. And in order to do that, you're going to need to add some wax to this. So what I prefer to do is I'll print this as is, and I want to create a little retention for my wax. So let's just get a couple little spots here and there. And I'm going overboard. You don't have to do this many, and you don't have to do any at all, frankly, but I do find this helps the wax adhere a little bit better. And now I'm going to push T for transform, and I can see this one's going to be a problem. There we go, T for transform. And let's just extend those up ever so slightly. They don't need much, right? This just creates some irregularities that wax is going to flow into and really make this stick. I'm sure you've had the experience of doing a wax records appointment and all the wax comes unadhered from the base, and that's not a fun day. So just doing this creates a little bit of a protrusion that will retain that wax. And now what you could do is just print this as is, and then go ahead, before you ever get the patient in, take some wax, one piece of base plate wax, roll it up, create a little roll of it, and then just warm it up in a flame and press it down into this. So that's going to do two things. One, it gives you a handle, so during your master impression, you'll be able to hold this extension of wax, the ridge of wax that's sticking up, and be able to hold it down, do your border molding and everything. And then once you've done your impression, the wax is already in place, and so now you can go ahead and proceed with your records. So that would mean starting with the maxillary, dial it in, get it parallel with the interpupillary line, with the allotragus line, mark your midline, mark your canines or the commissures, and then trim the wax and close the vertical until you have the right VDO using your lower. So the end result would be that you have an upper and a lower tray, and that has a master impression inside of it, but you've simultaneously gotten your records appointment done. So now all you have to do is go and scan that in, and you're ready to go to the final denture, okay? Because you have all your anatomic references, you have your vertical dimension, you've marked midline, and you have VDO. So now all you've got to do is just set the teeth in the software and just go ahead and make the final denture. The beauty of digital dentures, especially if you're printing them, you're looking at $7, $8, $10 something dollars a piece. So let's say that you went straight to final and you didn't love it. You're skipping the wax try-in here. So if you make this and you don't love it, we'll just make some notes of the changes that need to be done. Maybe you equilibrate the bite in a little bit more, and then just go back and make those changes in the software. So that could be a wax dry in, and then you deliver on the last appointment. But I find most cases you're able to actually just use this and get your final master impression and your records to the point where you can get your finals done probably 90% of the time. So hope you found that useful, and keep doing some dentures.